There's a beautiful and destructive natural phenomenon that occurs across the world every year. This natural phenomenon is known as a hurricane. The formation of hurricanes due to environmental factors such as warm oceans and natural weather patterns annually causes a destructive force of nature to threaten the health and safety of many people across the globe. When thinking about hurricanes, you may ask yourself a question. How do they form? Well, that's a great question. But to answer that, I must first address the three things a hurricane needs to form. First of all, a hurricane needs warm water. It needs water of at least 80 degrees Fahrenheit in temperature. It also needs humid air. If a hurricane does not have moist enough air, it cannot form. And the third and final thing a hurricane needs to form is deep enough water. It needs water of a depth of at least 164 feet deep, which is just over half a football field. Now, for the formation of a hurricane, it starts off when the warm ocean water heats up the moist, humid air above it. This air then begins to rise, causing there to be an area of low pressure at the surface of the ocean. This area of low pressure then continually draws in more warm, moist air. As all this air rises, you may think it would go straight up into the atmosphere, but in fact, it begins to rotate due to the Coriolis effect, which is the circulation of the atmosphere due to Earth's rotation. Once all this moist, humid air reaches high enough in the atmosphere, it begins to condense into thunderclouds. These thunderstorms are known as tropical disturbances. Tropical disturbances can change their name if they do one thing: draw in enough warm, moist air to be able to increase their wind speeds to at least 23 miles per hour. Once they do that, they will become known as tropical disturbances, or depressions. Tropical depressions can also change their name. To do this, they must also draw in even more warm, moist air to increase their wind speeds. Once they reach wind speeds of 40 miles per hour, they become known as tropical storms. Tropical storms are very similar to hurricanes, but much less powerful and much smaller. A tropical storm can become a hurricane if and only if it reaches wind speeds of at least 74 miles per hour. Now that we've looked at how a hurricane forms, we can look at how it is dangerous to individuals across the world. According to the University Corporation of Atmospheric Research, approximately 10,000 people across the world die every year due to hurricanes. There are many forces at play when a hurricane makes landfall on a coast. One of those forces is called storm surge. Storm surge happens when a hurricane's winds push water from the ocean inland. This water can reach heights of 20 to 30 feet. This water causes flooding in many areas and can pick up loose objects and small buildings along the way. These objects include fences, signs, small buildings, or small sheds, and yes, even people. Inland flooding is also a problem when a hurricane hits a coastal area. Inland flooding occurs when the storm's torrential rains cause rivers, lakes, and reservoirs to overflow their banks. This can cause flooding and much damage similar to storm surge. It also picks up loose objects and small buildings, also as storm surge does. The third thing that a hurricane can cause when it makes landfall is tornadoes. Yes, that's right, tornadoes. Tornadoes happen in a hurricane at the outer bands. The outer band's winds can make a perfect place for tornadoes to form. These tornadoes can easily rip off roofs and throw around objects and debris that can easily harm people or destroy property. Hurricanes don't only damage coastal areas, however. They can also damage offshore property. This includes ships. Although ships can evacuate most of the time, that is not always the case. If a ship gets caught in a storm, it can easily be flooded over with water and capsize or sink, taking its crew with it. Luckily, as I said earlier, ships tend to have enough time to evacuate the area. Oil rigs, however, do not have time because they cannot move at all. They are susceptible then to a hurricane's waves, rain, and winds. This can cause them to sink or be torn apart. This satellite view of Chimney Rock, North Carolina, shows the devastating effects a hurricane can have on any area across the world, on many areas across the world. Though hurricanes are dangerous, humans have learned and are learning how we can prevent the death and destruction that they cause. Some of the ways that humans have already begun to fight hurricanes' damages is by learning how to predict the weather patterns of a hurricane. This allows us to make better predictions on where a hurricane may land and to be able to evacuate people in time. Another way we can help prevent the death and destruction of hurricanes is by having hurricane evacuation bags. These bags carry all the necessities someone may need in case of the emergency or evacuation. Some of the things that we are still learning are by viewing hurricanes and their weather patterns. By doing this, we better understand them and can predict where they will land better and how hard they will hit. We can also study hurricanes to help us prevent the death and destruction by building better and safer infrastructure. The formation of hurricanes can be extremely interesting, and though they are dangerous and destructive, humans have learned and are learning how to prevent the death and destruction that they cause by this force of nature. Thank you. Are there any questions? Thank you for your time.